Hello everyone and welcome to Cappuccino with HR. My name is Rudi Bauer and after 40 years in business I'm 100% sure that the success of companies is directly related to the passion of the people working for these companies. With the Cappuccino of HR we created a format where we really invite people, it's HR leaders, it's recruiters, it's talent acquisition guys, and we're talking about all the different kind of topics, and the range is going from AI of course to new work, to leadership, and all the challenges along the way. Hello and welcome to another episode of Cappuccino with HR. And today we're talking about employer branding and employee advocacy. And I'm really delighted to have Mihaela Nedelcu as guest today. So hello, Mihaela.
Hi, Rudi. Nice to be here.
And the first thing what I would ask you to start the conversation, before we start the conversation, deep dive into the topic, could you please briefly introduce yourself for our audience?
Sure. So my name is Mihaela, but everybody calls me Miki. And I'm an HR professional with more than 14 years of experience across diverse industries, such as FMCG, IT, and banking. And I think what has really shaped a bit my perspective around this topic of corporate culture and employee advocacy is the fact that I started my career in IT companies. They were looking to grow a lot, so to double or triple in size, and where the competition for talent was very, very fierce. And that's why I think I learned very early on that it's not enough to attract great candidate. It's also super, super important to create a culture where people want to stay. And that's why I like to say that I was doing employer branding and culture work before it was cool, or even before it was my actual job title. Because a big part of my role has always been focused on attracting and retaining talent. And originally, I'm Romanian. I moved to Austria a couple of months ago together with my Austrian partner and our daughter. And I'm looking forward to bring my experience of bridging internal culture with employer branding also on the Austrian market. So thank you for having me.
Really cool. Uh, I call you Miki from now on as well, so if that's okay for you. So Miki, I have to ask you that because I ask this question every single guest, and it's called as it's called Cappuccino with HR. What's your favorite coffee?
So I actually don't drink coffee at all. I'm a tea person. So I drink gyokuro, which is a Japanese green tea that has 3 times more caffeine as coffee and a lot of other fantastical benefits. So I recommend it to everybody.
Okay, doc, good one. Um, to jump into the topic and to really to bring it on the ground, what does employee advocacy mean to you, and why do you think it's especially relevant, or it's especially relevant right now? I mean, we're living in turbulent times. We're living in kind of a high level of insecurity out in the labor markets. There's a lot of negative vibes there. Why do you think it is important, and why probably especially now?
So, in short, I think to me, employee advocacy means to empower your employees to share authentic content about how it is to work at your company. So, basically empowering them, giving them green light and giving them the capabilities to represent your brand externally on their personal channels. And I think this is in short, let's say, the simplest definition that I can think of. And why I think it is super relevant right now, but I think it will remain relevant for the future, is because the employees are trusted by other employees more than your corporate messages can ever be. So I think it's a way of communicating more authentically, more transparently, and in a way that employees are more likely to, or candidates are more likely to resonate with. That's why I think sharing content via the voices of your employees can be such a powerful tool and a win-win strategy. I think for the company and for the employees. I think both parties have a lot of things to gain out of this exchange, and from more reach to less budget invested in advertising to increasing the digital skills of your employees, increasing their personal brand, increasing their engagement, which ultimately leads to a lot of very positive, I think, feedback loops for the employee engagement and um, retention and as well as talent attraction. Why I think now it's very relevant, it's because a big part of our workforce now consists of people that are digital natives, and people that tend to use the internet and social media platforms, websites, recommendation platforms, to inform themselves and to make decisions, not only when it comes to buying something or where to go to eat or to work out, but also, more importantly, where you're going to work, or for whom you're going to work for. And that's why I think in this very digital native um, world, being very active, and not only yourself as a company but your employees being very active on this platform can ensure that your brand is out there, is relevant, and it's top of mind for people looking for a job.
Hmm. And if you want, if you're going to to start building that up for yourself as a company, I mean, what I see, I mean, we tend to have this behavior that if we're doing Instagram posts, if we're doing stories on Instagram, we tend to use some kind of filters to make us more shiny, glimmery, and glossy than we are really are in reality. How do you avoid that? Because what you described is a kind of a really authentic, natural kind of messaging. It's not filtered by anything. I mean, a lot of companies have rules that not even a single message about the company is allowed to go out without having a kind of press department or the marketing department have a look onto it. How do we avoid this then? Because otherwise it's a kind of, yeah, you give your people the freedom to talk about you, and to you use them as ambassadors, but they're not allowed to say anything because there's always some filterings needed. How do you set that up right?
Yeah, yeah. So I understand the challenge, and I felt it myself when I was trying to post content on our company's company channels as an employee, as an employer branding manager. It is a bit different when it comes to employees because they're not posting on your official channels, so they are posting on their personal channels, which obviously you cannot check, or you cannot, let's say, delete or edit according to your liking. So you need to trust your employees to represent you, and of course that doesn't mean that you tell your employees just go there, communicate authentically your experience without any other information. So I think what is important here is to give a bit of support to employees, to explain a bit the mission, why you're doing this, why are you trying to gain, and what they are gaining out of this, but to provide some guidelines in place. So these guidelines can be a social media strategy. So what are you allowed to post and not? For example, data privacy, information, confidential information about product launches or things that they, as employees, have access to before the rest of the world. So you need to give them a bit of structure and instructions around what could be useful and what could be detrimental to the company and to their career. And that's why I think providing these guidelines ensures that they know what they should be posting. And there's also a big part, I think, of capability building that you need to do when you launch such a program. So you need to somehow teach, or let's say make sure that they get some access to different type of capability development options, such as storytelling, such as personal branding, photography, um, how to handle sensitive content, how to handle hate comments or negative comments. So I think you need to equip your employees with this type of information if you want them to be successful, and if you want your company not to suffer a lot of negative consequences. But ultimately it comes down to trust. So as I said, it's their that's about their own personal channels, their own personal brand, so you cannot intervene there. You can of course encourage, you can of course check from time to time, explain why something is, give an example of a good practice, give an example of a practice that should be avoided. So you can do this preparation work when you're launching such a program in order to ensure your your employees put their best foot forward when they start communicating about yourself as a company.
Mhm. Mhm. Have you met a company you have been working for that where you say they did it brilliantly, or probably the other example? Because as you mentioned, I think at the end of the day, it has a lot to do with trust, and I sometimes questions if we are trustful enough in Europe's companies, because I think we are still afraid of making errors. I think we have a bad failure culture in Europe. That's my personal opinion. I think we are not really good in accepting errors and failures and mistakes. So we try to avoid them from the very beginning. And I think at the end of the day, if you trust people, you can't avoid making mistakes and failures, because new things are tried out. And if new things are tried out, I think this happens. I think it's totally tied to it. So what is your personal experience, and how could you convince the management in an organization to take that risk and go into that kind of yeah, to try it out?
Yeah. So I do have an example also from my own personal experience at Coca-Cola HBC. So my most recent experience, where we launched such a program, and our presence is mostly European, so 29 countries across Europe, a bit of Africa and Asia, but mostly European. And we had, let's say, similar discussions and concerns with leadership when we launched the program. Um, People were asking, what if they post bad things about us? Should we really encourage people to post about us? What if the consequences will be negative? And we always, the argument was always, they can do that also now if they feel the need to post on a review site or their social media channel. They can do that now without such a program in place if they really want to. So the purpose is to try to actually take out or find out what are the positive experiences. And most people, when you encourage them to share and when you give them the right tools and guidelines, they will share the positives and the things that they are proud of, not necessarily things that they are not proud of, or things that make them super unhappy at work. And we also thought about a lot about who should be in the program. So should it be an open call? Should we let people self-select? Should we ask them directly? Should they be high potentials? Should they be customer facing? So it's a lot of questions, I think, that you have when you think about launching such an initiative. And in the end, we had a lot of freedom at the local level around how to launch the program. So the idea came from the branding group team, and they did, let's say, the initial selling to the global leadership team. But then in countries, I was a representative for a BU, for a business unit. And then in countries, we had a lot of freedom around how we launch it locally, and how we engage with our advocates after the launch. And the way we decided to do it in my business unit was to do an open call, so to allow people to self-select themselves. And why we did this is because you have a lot of advantages. People that are really interested can self-select themselves. I think it's a bit of a trend now in HR also to allow people to say who wants to be a manager, who wants to be part of this training. So not necessarily that we as HR or managers choose those people, but we let them say and raise their hand if they're interested in participating. And the good thing is that you also can find about people that you would not have found out about. A lot of stories that you don't know necessarily as HR, as a CEO, let's say, little stories or people that come with different motivations from like bloggers in their own personal time, or people passionate about social media, or people passionate about HR that don't work in HR. So a lot of good surprises. I think you can have a lot of nice surprises when you allow people to self-select and to volunteer for such initiatives. And also, when you mandate it, it becomes a bit of a task. It becomes a bit of another thing that you need to do to put on your plate. And if you choose to do this also with high performers that usually already probably have big responsibilities, are trying to stretch themselves to grow, it can become a burden for them. So my recommendation would be to allow people to raise their hand and to volunteer for such programs, so that it doesn't feel forced somehow.
Yeah, that would have been my next question, but you already answered it in a way, because my next question would have been, how do you motivate then the people and the advocates to really talk about the company, write stories, put stories online. But if they nominate themselves, they normally are willing to do it. So I think probably that's the best way, and it solves the second issue as well. So I wanted to talk about. I mean, we employer branding is normally seen as kind of recruiting instrument. So it's meant to help you to find talents out on the market, to make them curious about your company and your brand. Uh, and there's always this kind of conflict. I mean, there's always new people coming into organizations and existing people already working for the company. So for me, it is always this kind of discrepancy between, is employer branding purely used for recruiting, or could it be used in a clever way also for retention? And on the other hand, for me, it also means, uh, is there a gap between external experiences and expectations and internal experiences and expectations? How do you balance that?
So I think employer branding starts from within. So it's an internal job first, and then an external job. So I think our work in not only in employer branding but also in HR, it's also to make sure that we first do the work, the hard work of building that culture, as I mentioned in the beginning, that we build that culture where people want to stay, and doing this work initially. So not spending time just crafting communication, crafting values, crafting evps, but actually embedding this communication into the employee experience. So making sure that it is reflected in your processes. So the way you recruit, so that you have the expectations of who will thrive there, that you promote people that are in line with those performance expectations, that you reward employees. You have employee recognition programs that reward those behaviors that you're trying to see. So I think once you do this initial groundwork and you embed these expectations and your employee value proposition in all your HR processes, then it becomes much easier to communicate externally, because you have a lot of success stories, you have a lot of engaged employees, you have advocates that give a lot of inside information. So I think you cannot separate the two. Definitely the first step is building and maintaining this culture, and then just making sure that you're promoting your strengths, but you're promoting them in a way that's genuine. So not only aspirational. I think a lot of companies want to be super aspirational and sugarcoat things, but um, this really can backfire very, very, very quickly, because people now look at Glassdoor, look at Kununu, they can see Facebook reviews, they can see a lot of reviews of the authentic experience, and if they're so far misaligned between what they see on your website or in your job description with what they read on Kununu, then they're not going to be convinced. So they're definitely it's basically just wasting your money on shiny campaigns and clever copy, but if it doesn't reflect the internal experience, then it's just a waste of time. And I think it creates a lot of mistrust with candidates that I think are very reluctant to apply or to come to an interview when they see this discrepancy between what you're trying to communicate and what they see your employees communicating. So that's why I think it's, as you said, it's a balance work, but the two need to be very, very well intertwined, and you need to first do the hard work first, and then then promote it.
Mhm. And if a company, I mean, I think nearly everyone on the market has already started with doing employer branding since years now, but a lot of them are still struggling with getting this balance right. And I think for me that's the core problem in employer branding, to get this balance right, to really balance the experiences and the cool flavor that you need to attract talent. How did you do it in your previous jobs to set up the initial basis, so the EVP probably, or however you called it? uh, did you involve a lot of employees? Was it purely done by the employer branding team together with the management or with an external agency? What is the best way of starting there if you really want to get it right from the very beginning?
Yeah, so I think we're coming back to involving employees somehow. We're coming back to employee advocacy, but not necessarily to social media, but to really involving your employees. So I don't think you can build a successful EVP just by working with an agency or just by doing it together with the leadership team. I think involving employees and really understanding their perspective and their experience firsthand, so directly from their words, it's important to in building such a relevant EVP. And the way we did it in the past was by choosing these employees that we want more of. So looking at our high potential, looking at the people that have the best results that we want to get more of, we identified these people, we interviewed them. Of course, there is a lot of also external trend mapping, competition mapping. You need to look a bit where the world is going and what people are interested in, other type of external surveys. But in order to give it this authentic flavor and to really understand what makes you you and why people come there, why people thrive there, you need to make sure that your best employees are involved in this process, and you need to incorporate their voices in the EVP. And we did work with an agency, but I think it's perfectly doable also internally. Um, I also worked a lot, or employer branding team also worked a lot with business partners. So I think this can be a lot of another, let's say, problem. And I could feel it also. I used to be an HR business partner, and then I was an employer branding manager, so more of a center of expertise, as we call it. And I felt much more disconnected from the business as I felt when I was an HR business partner. And the way that I managed to bridge that gap was to really involve business partners that really know the team. So they're closer to the team, involve the managers, they know their teams best. And they were able to help me select which were the relevant employees at each level, at each department. It's very hard to do it by yourself, let's say, or just looking at data without talking to the people that know these people best.
Mm. And how many employees have you put into this kind of EVP discussion? Was it 5 or 10 or 50 or 100?
It depends on the company size, obviously. For us, it was a group project, so we had representatives from all countries, and we tried to have representatives from different departments, as well from different seniority levels. So I think for my business unit, that was 1,500 people. We had around 20 employees. So it depends a bit on the size of the business unit, but definitely a representative amount, I would say. And as I mentioned, people that we want to attract. So the type of people that we would like to see more in our company.
Hmm. And how is it used, or how have you used it then for retention? I mean, because of course it also plays into retention, because I mean, if you get this kind of feedback from the people, you also get a lot of useful information on building up your retention and making people stay by using this kind of information, by getting all the feedback, by putting all the experience together. Was that used in dedicated projects then for increasing employee satisfaction, or making them stay?
So this process, I would say, it's a more continuous process of using the employee feedback. So we gathered feedback on a lot of touch points. For this project specifically, yeah, we had the feedback from these interviews, but we had, let's say, a more comprehensive listening strategy. So we tried to compile information from multiple sources. So sources like candidate feedback, for example, onboarding feedback, employee satisfaction surveys, exit interviews. So I think all this all this information, put Glassdoor reviews or Kununu reviews, and I think all this information put together gives you a more complete picture. So yes, we do use this information to analyze weaknesses, to identify opportunities for growth, to identify our strengths and what we can communicate more of. Because I think ultimately that's what your you're trying to do to understand what you should communicate more of. So what is real?
Got when you got all the information and the feedback back the people working with you in this project, there was probably some critics and negative things as well. How easy was it to bring it up to the top management and to convince them to take care about it, or was it blocked most of the times, or was there really openness from the from and the buy-in from the top management in your organization?
So I think we didn't address in this interview so much the areas for improvement. So the purpose of these interviews was more to get to know our strengths more and who we are and what is real and what can we communicate externally so it wasn't necessarily with the purpose of improving. It was just with the purpose of knowing ourselves and our strengths better and how we are perceived by our best employees. And this type of feedback, improvement feedback, we address more to the regular employee satisfaction surveys. And I think there is an openness. I think there is a practice that is old, so managers and top management are used to it, and they also see it as a pulse check. They like to understand what is the perception from time to time on different topics. um, I think it depends on individual manager cases. Also, probably there are managers that are more more reluctant to understanding the feedback. Others that are trying to really understand it and change it. But I think it's a practice that is done for a long time, and the managers are used to it and don't let's say don't negate it as much or don't negate its importance as much.
And if you have to bring it down to three steps that are necessary, the three most important steps to set this up as a project in your organization, uh, what would the three most important steps would be if you need to summarize it in three steps? What would it be if you decide, okay, we need to set this up and we want to implement this in our organization? What would you suggest as the three most important steps?
So for employee advocacy, I think it would be first to define your objective, so what you're trying to get out of the program. Um, then I think it's important to also choose an external partner, so a platform that you work with. We also worked with a platform, and it was very beneficial. So it allowed us to really measure, track, reward employees much more easily than if we would have done it manually. And the third one would be to really invest in the capabilities of the employees. So even if people are willing and passionate about the topic, they still have another job, at the end of the day. So making sure that you really build these capabilities by providing relevant trainings. We worked a lot also with external guests, with journalists, with LinkedIn influencers, with social media managers from agencies. So really empowering them with trends, how to post, when to post, what are the benefits of each platform, how to do good photos, how to really tell your personal story, how to increase your personal brand. So really this capability building helps them also build their motivation and also helps create better content. So I think you need to invest in it as well.
As we are coming to the end of this episode, I think we are very close to the 30 minutes, which you normally try to have a kind of a limit. But two things which I still want to ask you. One thing is, as we are having AI everywhere, and AI is able to produce content in a way that it's very difficult for non-experts to really differentiate between is it real or fake. Do you see a kind of a is this a positive thing for employer branding and advocacy, or is it more a kind of a big risk that we are then probably flooded with fakey content that is produced, which is definitely not authentic because it's done by a machine? How do you what's your personal opinion on that topic?
Yeah, I agree. It could be a problem because it could sound very corporate and inauthentic if they use AI to build it. So I think that was the whole purpose to see how, let's say, non-professionals communicate with their own voice. But on the other hand, it could also help you. So I think somebody that is wants to be very active, wants to do pictures from the market, from his job, from trainings, and now can also have a tool to somehow empower him, maybe to connect the gap where he's not so good at, maybe writing a catchy or a shorter topic or a shorter post. So I think we should use it as professionals, but try to also put our personal twist. So that's why I think if you use it to enhance where you're not so good at, I think it can be a game changer. If you're using it to replace the work entirely, then the result is going to be not going to stand out, and that's why I think it could be useful.
Always my last question is if Aladdin with his wonder lamp would show up at you and would say, okay, Mickey, you have got one wish, and we're talking about purely employer branding, employee advocacy, what would be the one wish to Aladdin?
Hmm. Hmm. Good question. Um, Let me think. So I think my let's say the biggest wish would be to have somehow to have companies that are a bit more brave. So as you said in the beginning, to uh, cut a bit through this very bureaucratic approval of doing anything, and to have a bit more opportunity to fail and to experiment with more creative and innovative projects. I think this could lead us to much more engaging and fun work, but also to better results. So more courage when it comes to branding.
That's a good one. That's a really good one, Mickey. I really signed that because I see that that could be a good one. Yeah. Mickey, even if we had some internet connection issues, it was a great talking with you. Thank you so much for your time. And dear audience, please stay tuned for what's coming up, and see you very soon. And Mickey, once again, thank you.
Thank you very much as well, Rudy, for the invitation. It was great to dive a bit more into these topics, and I hope it was useful for the ones that are gonna hear it and they're gonna use the information to implement probably in their own companies such a program. And just in the end, I wanted to also tell you about a statistic that I found really interesting. It came from Gartner, and they said a couple of years ago, in 2022, I think, that by the end of 2023, 90% of marketing strategies will have employee advocacy as a component. And Gartner didn't come back in 2025 to say if this was true or not, but there are other surveys that show that at least in the UK and the US, more than 50% of companies have implemented such a program. I tried to find data also for Europe and specifically for Austria. And I found something also interesting for Austria. The survey said that around 86% of people are aware of this program, of such programs, but it was only implemented in around 15% of companies. So I think this definitely shows there's a lot of opportunity for the next years. If it's becoming mainstream, and companies are starting to really understand the value of communicating through their employees. And I think also in Austria, there's definitely awareness. Now we need to just move into action.
Mhm. Important, yeah, very important. I see this as very important for companies as well because yeah, we will need talent, and the crisis will pass by. So I think all the recruiting restrictions they will have an end someday, and then I think we need to be prepared. Yeah. Okay, Mika, thank you so very much, and uh, nice afternoon to the rest out there.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you for watching Cappuccino with HR. If you enjoy this kind of conversations, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Then you get all this kind of upfront information, your upcoming episodes, and all my nice guests. Cappuccino with HR is brought to you by WeAreDevelopers, Europe's #1 developer community and a leading platform for connecting HR and companies together with developers. If you want to learn more, visit us on WeAreDevelopers.com. Thank you again for watching and see you next time on Cappuccino with HR.